Commander Coggins and Captain Vo here yet again for another Trekyards mission briefing. Do I even need to say it's a more relaxed discussion show looking at things from the Star Trek universe, discuss, theorise, and get audience feedback? But I did anyway.
No previous research is done for these shows, just our knowledge of Star Trek as it is.
And this is one of those fun Star Trek Online episodes.
This week we are taking a look at the Excalibur class, and since I collect swords, it's one of my favorite class names from Star Trek Online for sure. This is a very familiar looking ship to all of you, mainly because it is used in a lot of promotional stuff for Star Trek Online initially. And it is basically just a refitted Constitution class refit. Again, refitted with more modern upgraded parts.
The 2409 version, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
And this is the first picture, and you can definitely see that is what they're going for. So got all the same pieces, just in a little bit of a different order, bit sleeker, bit... I don't know, what do you think? What's your first impression? What do you first see?
My first impression is this is an amazing picture, first of all.
Yeah.
That ringed planet in the background, and just it looks like something that would be in the captain's ready room for sure.
Yeah, and what I like best about this picture, I think, is that Star Trek Online has this funny thing where you see the warp glow, the impulse glow, but that's exactly how it looks in the motion picture, well, the Wrath of Khan, all those guys. That is how warp looks. This fits perfectly. I really like that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now, this is probably one of the better angles of this ship for me personally, to be honest, because it looks kind of proportionally all right here. The only thing I don't really like is the struts, just the kind of weird hourglass shape and the fact that they kind of curve a little.
Well, it's trying to be that sleek vibe, isn't it? Again, yeah, I do like the nacelles, though. They pop at me straight away. They're very much a Nemesis-style nacelle.
Yeah, very sovereign, for sure.
Yeah, I think that definitely works with this aesthetic. Nicer than some of more of a... it makes it fit into the time period. I mean, how do you redesign a Connie? Which is basically what this is. Make all the pieces feel more advanced. I think I like the deflector, I think. And for some reason now the torpedo tubes feel a bit more out of proportion. Because the tubes themselves are a certain size, and we know the basic size they should be. But the outer hull of that seems a little bit...
too bulky?
Yes. Which sort of goes against the sleekness of the neck and of the everything else.
True, yeah. I don't mind the secondary hull in this from this angle. I mean, it's one of those ships that has one or two very nice angles views, and then the rest are just kind of meh.
Well, what did you think when you first saw this ship then back in 2000 whatever when this game came out? This is one of the first ones they used. This was the hey, we're Star Trek, but our own Star Trek.
I wasn't super impressed, to be honest. I'm like, oh, really they're doing that? Like, that's so unoriginal. Just putting next generation parts on the refit, right?
I appreciated the thought, and I think given what they tried to do, I think it works. But as with with a lot of Star Trek Online, because obviously we only have certain ships we can use because you upgrade in a certain set way. I tend to go for the cannon ships, and I would pick a classic refit style over this, just because I like flying the ones that I recognize.
Yeah, I've got all the main Enterprises and stuff in my fleet so far. So,
although again, like I say, in terms of faithful reproduction, I quite like it. And then you should bring on to the next picture.
Well, that leads us on to the next picture, and this is one that everybody's familiar with because this was really pumped out in the early days of Star Trek Online. I even have it. I have the Star Trek Online Special Edition with 2 guest passes and just little credit cards, basically. And they got this picture on them.
Yeah, I've got a special edition as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and again, this is not a bad angle. They kind of hide all the awkwardness of the neck and the gangliness of the nacelles kind of in this picture. So it's a nice shot. I really appreciate this one.
It's interesting how many dimensions to the saucer there are, because there's so many different levels and parts to it. And it's not just that set bridge module. There's that flowing back bit which goes into the edge of the saucer, and it's definitely gives it more armored feel. Definitely gives it a more structurally sound feel, perhaps. I think. And it is interesting to see the escape pods as well on such a familiar shape.
Yeah, so what is the front part of that, though? Is that a shuttle bay, or is that a deflector, or...?
I don't know. I mean, it could just be an aesthetic pull-in. I mean, I don't know.
Seems like a lot of wasted space in that case. I mean, if it's...
Well, I mean...
some kind of purpose there, I don't know.
Well, I mean, come on, the model's pretty dark in that area. I think we need to see it. You know, when we do the full episode, I think it'd be interesting to really, go into the area and see what is there.
That bridge module looks more than just the bridge module. It looks almost like
Absolutely.
the bridge is probably lower in the ship, and that's more like a lounge or I don't know, more deck space. It's
Whereas, so the older designs obviously have the bridge and then deck 2. Some newer ones have, parts around it, but it definitely feels like there's space. The deck 1 is not the bridge, or even if it is the bridge, they've got rooms around it, absolutely. And it gives it a different scale, a different feel. Do you like the bigger one?
this almost makes it seem much bigger than a refit would have been. I mean,
Well,
it's not the same. It
quite
doesn't look
possibly
like the
could
same
be.
size.
Quite possibly could be. There's no reason why it isn't, a 400 meters long. I don't know. I think it does work. I think it does work overall. Again, it's one of those strange ships that's like is there but not quite there. But the next picture, which is really interesting when we get to see all the different angles, and straight away, I mean, yeah, some interesting stuff.
This has more of an Excelsior style feel, especially with those engines, and somewhat the secondary hull kind of, maybe a little, but definitely the engines are more Excelsior-like. Or actually, they look more like the Olympic class that Beverly was in command of.
The Pasteur.
Yes, the Pasteur. Yeah.
And these are different nacelles to the last one. The last one had a very sovereign. This is a much more bulkier feel, more like say the Excelsior. I do prefer the other ones though. I prefer the sleeker look. I think they work, but yeah, I do think I prefer the previous one. And length of 310 meters, so it is around the refit, which does make sense.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see so many angles. I think this is probably a fan version, a fan 3D model. But then again, with all these Star Trek Online ships, you can change out components, so it's difficult to say what is the. I mean, the other version is the classic one, but it's difficult to say what is this version.
Another thing that kind of bothers me about this is the escape pod placement. The saucer doesn't seem deep enough for those to be where they're placed, because the bottom have them kind of inset, and then the top have them. So it's like 2 rows of escape pods that would take up that whole outer ring of the saucer almost.
Well, why not? I mean, maybe it's just there's a gangway in between it, and you run, you take a corridor from the bridge, and then you just
And the thing is too, we never really knew where the escape pods and the refit were.
Very true. Yeah.
So
it's interesting. I like it actually. I don't think it. It'd be interesting to see what's left once you actually eject the escape pods.
Another thing I'm noticing is the different bridge module on this one. This one seems more like a bridge module on the top there.
Yes, and I prefer that, I think.
I do too.
I like how it has a little spine to the back. I always like that sort of continuation of a structure into the back of the saucer. And I do like those impulse engines, how they're kind of off rectangles.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
But sleek. And the neck's nicer as well. The neck's nicer.
Another thing that's really cool that would have been nice on the refit is on the bottom of that secondary hull, you can see a photon torpedo tube right there.
Yeah. That's nice. That's good placement.
Yeah, and I like the shape of the bottom of that secondary hull.
And that's
nice.
That's the middle right picture. Yeah, that's nice. For audience out there who can't see what we're doing.
Yeah.
And if you go right down to the bottom, the orthos, what do you think of that side view? Because I
don't mind it, except for the engines. Change the engines out, and it kind of looks like a Galaxy class saucer from the side.
The saucer is the wrong size. It's a weird thing to say, but it doesn't feel. It feels a very stubby ship, which it shouldn't do. It doesn't. The dimensions are a little bit off, I think. It's a little bit off.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but a little bit.
One thing I do like about the side view is the shape of that secondary hull. From the side, that looks amazing.
Yeah, it's although the front looks like a Hoover attachment.
Yeah, the front does not look good.
But the back, I like how the back is nicely tapered with the 2 levels. That's kind of cool. Yeah, this is definitely a better view. The engines, this is the refit version. This isn't so much. And those phaser strips are kind of ugly, aren't they, at the top? Just chucked in.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next photo is the front. This is obviously a different view.
That has more of an Excelsior secondary hull.
Very Excelsior, absolutely. You could probably almost believe this was an Excelsior, almost.
Yeah. It's got 4 photon torpedo tubes in the leading edge of the saucer section there, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I think the last one was a fan extrapolation, like his own version of it, because, well, the engine's the same on this one. Again, there are different versions of the ship because obviously you can build it in different ways.
Yeah.
It's got no neck torpedo launcher. Is it just me though? This to me looks like refit engines roughly, Enterprise A bridge module roughly, Excelsior secondary hull pretty much obviously, but Enterprise C saucer.
I was just going to say an ambassador class saucer.
Because that is bulky as hell.
It's very fugly.
Yeah,
it's smushed. I don't like it.
It's proportionately just wrong. And look how the engine, the pylon, sorry.
I know.
The way they attach just doesn't. No.
I'm not sure those are the same engines as the last picture because they look more like the Excelsior class engines. And once again, there's the Excelsior's making everything ugly again. Sorry, I don't like the Excelsior. But that secondary hull is just atrocious. Unless you have the wide neck that goes with an Excelsior, don't use an Excelsior secondary hull because that's just not.
Yeah, I would agree. It doesn't taper in well.
No.
So the next picture is a Jem'Hadar version of this with the light, with everything installed. It's got the really dynamic purple everything. Nice engines again. Or the bridge, the whole source is different now. The impulse engines are higher up, with it as being a part of the bridge or saucer end of the saucer.
Yeah, I kind of like this version better. I mean, even the placement of those escape pods are way better than the last one we saw.
Yeah,
there's no super ugly, noticeable phaser strips in there.
No, there are not. For this version, though, if you look at the nacelles and the struts like they're pushing up further than any previous version. That could just be me, but it looks taller and it looks more like they don't know how to proportion. They've just sort of pushed everything a few meters too high, everything's been pushed stretched a little bit, and it's just like, oh, that doesn't. Well, because this has a much more egg-shaped saucer, whereas previous versions have had spheres, or at least the fan version did. Yeah.
One of the big things I noticed about this one too is the back of that saucer, the way it's kind of like a V shape, is very reminiscent of like a Sovereign. That Sovereign kind of has that structure to it. So I don't mind it. It would make more deck space in there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'd be cool if there's a shuttle bay there, wouldn't there? Just to lift a shuttle out, Defiant style. Would be fun.
All right, so the next picture is just one of the promotional ones that we kind of
seen this a few times.
Saw early on, yeah. And it looks good from that angle. They kind of hit it a little bit. Although right away, what I noticed was that curved strut. Never liked it. If it was straight, I would have been much more on board with it. So.
Well, it's a big amalgam, isn't it? Although the color scheme looks nice because the reef, it never had that bright red torpedo launcher. And so you suddenly put that, but it kind of works. And again, I like the engines and everything's an off color. The blues are a bit of a lighter blue. The red is now an orange. Like it looks. I guess it's sort of following that LCAR style for the Enterprise E. Everything's going a bit more lighter blue, and so the colours are going a bit lighter. And I suppose it's more advanced because what you associate white with clean and advanced. So I guess that's probably what they're doing here, as opposed to bright red and bright blue.
I gotta wonder too: is there even a shuttle bay in the back of that secondary hull because it's so narrow at the back? And that brings me back to what I mentioned earlier: the front of that saucer. Is that the shuttle bay? Because we've seen that before with the Akira and stuff, where there's a forward-facing shuttle bay, and that kind of what that looks like. So,
yeah, I would agree with that absolutely. Yeah. And the next photo is clearly that same as that photo shoot with the Excelsior style engines.
Looks a little better from this angle, I gotta say.
Now we see how it attaches to the secondary hull, which is an Excelsior style attachment. Kind of works. Yeah, this is very much actually. Would this work if they had dumbed it down a little bit? Would this be a good midpoint between the Excelsior and the Ambassador? Because you've got the Ambassador style bridge, saucer, but you've got the Excelsior style everything else, and obviously the Ambassador neck as well.
Yeah.
Make it look less cartoony and less curved, but I mean that's sort of in between. I mean it's not far off probably.
Yeah. And honestly, this angle doesn't look that bad. Just because I know how it looks in other angles, I'm kind of but
it just doesn't look great though.
If I just seen this, I'd be like, there's something off, but it looks all right. I don't know.
I don't think the shapes work together. They're really sleek struts with the really weird nacelles, with the really big bulky secondary hull, with the really big bulky. Just the shapes don't work together. It just all feels bulky and yet compressed.
This looks like a play school Federation ship.
It does, yes. Yeah, absolutely. No offense.
All right, let's go to the next shot. This is a
Uh,
great shot of it whizzing by the camera, orbit of Earth there.
are we
Look, I can
sure
see
it's
my
Earth?
house. I can see my
Are we,
house.
are we sure it's Earth? What continent is that?
That would be North America, my friend. And there's the Great Lakes up there. I can see southwestern Ontario. I can see
Oh
Florida at the
really?
bottom right.
Oh right. I'm trying to work out. Okay, yeah. Because I'm used to seeing like either side. Oh no.
Trust me, that's the Great Lakes.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I mean the ship. It's thinner. I like it being thinner, but now it looks spindly. And those are very thin struts, pylons, very
Mhm.
thin.
And like I said just in the last picture, I don't think there's room back there for a shuttle bay. So I think the shuttle bay is in the front of this
Oh
site.
no, I can imagine there would be. Even if it's a deck too, there's probably 2 decks worth of space. I mean, you've got.
Maybe. Maybe.
I think there was one in the previous picture. Yeah, I mean, in the fan version there is, but obviously we haven't seen the back of it in the shot. But yeah, there you go. That is every picture. Any final thoughts on the Excalibur, sort of famous Star Trek Online, not Connie, 2409 tech?
Nice try, guys. Kind of tried to suck people in. But, I mean, a lot of people like this design too. So, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of it.
It's close, but not quite there.
It seems very cut and pasty.
Yeah, and cartoony. It just feels a bit more cartoony. It shows how the sleek, like, again, it shows how Andrew Probert was on the right track. How Matt Jeffries, they got it, and it could have been so many other things, but they got it, and so it's difficult to replicate that. But yeah, good try. And that is it for another Trekyards mission briefing, Star Trek Online style. This is the Excalibur class. And let us know what you think of the ship down below. Did you use one? I know I didn't. I always use cannon ships, and this is not my cup of tea so much. But let us know if you used it. Let us know if it truly is the one ship to rule them all.
Really?
Until next time, guys. This is Commander Coggins.
Captain Full.
See you guys.
Bye.